Hello and welcome to a Patreon Q&A. I do one of these every couple of months, and if you'd like to ask questions yourself, all you have to do is subscribe to my Patreon from $1 a month, so it's not too expensive. But if you can't do that, feel free to ask questions in the comments below, and I'll try to get to them and answer them there. Without further ado, we don't have as many questions this time. Starting with Gail Wolf, do you have a favorite bad movie or game that you enjoy despite knowing it ain't that great? I guess the obvious game for me would be Driver 3, so I'm not going to talk about Driver 3 again. Maybe Test Drive Unlimited 2, which was this giant open world MMO style racing game where the driving physics were kind of terrible, but everything else about it was really, really good. Like I really liked how you sort of found the car dealerships by just like driving past them, and then you just went in them and in first person walked around on the showroom floor and looked at the cars you liked. And there was all these interesting social elements, like you could invite people into your car and drive around with them in the passenger seat, or you could buy a house and put all your cars in the garage and then invite your friends to that house and look at all the cars you've collected. It did a phenomenal job at the whole car collection thing. It just didn't actually play that well. As far as movies go, I generally just enjoy watching movies. I can go to the movies and watch anything and usually enjoy it. Like, it has to be quite terrible, like memorably terrible for me to like not enjoy watching a movie at the movies. Like, I can think of a couple of cases. Like, there was a movie called Wonder Wheel, which I saw at the cinemas that I hated, and some other movie I've forgotten the name of. But yeah, generally I like movies no matter how terrible they are. Particularly, maybe I like the old Adam Sandler movies. They aren't that great, I suppose, but I love them. I just saw Bloodshot in the cinema with Vin Diesel, and that was pretty bad, but like I still really enjoyed the corniness of it. It felt very early 2000s, and I appreciated that. So thank you for the question. Antonio Phillips asks, any podcast recommendations? And then Ritalin for Kids says Dissonant Waves, and Dominic Chikoki says Seconded. Silver Screens and Politics is a fun archive to check out too, or so I hear. That's some heavy self-promotion there. As far as podcasts that I keep up with one called Tofop, which is just sort of this unfocused Australian comedy podcast with like a comedian and an actor, and just like it's like a duo that get along together really naturally, and they're both really funny, and they just sort of talk about everything. And in the same vein, I like the Tiny Meat Gang podcast, which is just a couple of YouTubers doing a similar thing, but they're American. So yeah, I have pretty basic podcast tastes. But yeah, check out Tofop if you want something interesting, I think. Did you vote in the Hottest 100 yet, lad? I did. For context, the Hottest 100 is a nationwide voted list of 100 songs that we do every single year, and recently we did a Hottest 100 for the entire decade. And I did vote in it, and you get to have 10 votes, and I voted for these songs that you're looking at on the screen right now. I guess I kind of would swap some of these songs out for other songs in retrospect. I did rush it a little bit, but my rationale was just, oh man, there is a loud train going past. Anyway, my rationale was just pick songs that sort of resonated with me, and there was no other sort of limitations I put on myself. I didn't care about repeating artists. I didn't care about what I thought would make the list. And yeah, these were some cool damn songs. I think I'd probably swap out maybe Twin Size Mattress for A$AP Rocky's A$AP Forever remix. But yeah, a lot of Kid Cudi, a lot of Kanye. They were kind of big artists for me in the past decade. Maybe I'd put another Brockhampton song in over Houdini. But yeah, that's if you want a taste of my personal music taste. Thing is, with music, to me it's a very personal thing. I don't approach it in the same way that I do movies and games. Like movies and games, I like to go in and just sort of hyperanalyze them in a way, and try and learn everything and learn every game and learn every movie and familiarize myself and just dive into the whole world. But with music, it's just like I like these songs and I'm going to listen to them 100 times, and I don't care that I don't leave my own bubble that much. So it's always a little bit uncomfortable for me sharing music, because I don't feel like I'm in any way a voice in the music community or on music. in any intelligent way. Dominic Chikoki asks, do you like any music podcasts? Don't worry, I won't be offended. I don't actually listen to any music podcasts. I should listen to your podcast, Dissonant Waves, more. Charlie Landbox asks, what's the most aggravating time you had with a video game in the moment and now you... What's the most aggravating time you had with a video game in the moment that you now reminisce about or look back on fondly? So my entire League of Legends experience was a real disaster, and I'm sure a lot of people have like a relatable story here, right? So a lot of people I hung out with played League and were really into League, and I decided that I'd have a crack at it, and I spent an ungodly amount of time convincing myself that I was getting better at it, because people kept telling me, you know, like, once you're good at League becomes really fun, and I got okay-ish with like Garen because he was very easy to use, but I never got that good, and I got very angry, and the people who play that game just like are real angry people. So like at the time, I remember hating League, I remember giving up on League, I remember uninstalling League, but looking back on that whole experience, it was a lot of fun in its own way. It was a funny time, and I still do boot up League every now and then to play a couple of ARAMs, and I do enjoy it. I just wish that I was any good at it, you know, because apparently it is fun. The Golden Bolt asks, when are you going to review The Sims 4 DS? I'll do Sims 2 soon. I'll get there. Don't know about Sims 4, but I know Sims 3 is on DS, which is interesting. And yeah, shorter episode this time. That's all the questions. Thank you for asking them. Hope you all enjoyed this episode of Q&A. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm working on a new video on the Fast and the Furious PS2 that should be out either tomorrow or the next day, probably the next day at this rate. And hope you've all been well. Take it easy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you sometime in the future. Bye.